Hello, and welcome to We Read Allegedly, where we allegedly read books. Today, we are having an all-girl squad. We kicked John out.
Again.
We kicked John out again, and we're going to talk about overthrowing the patriarchy.
Yay. Take him down.
Woohoo!
For reference, John's not the patriarchy.
John is not the patriarchy.
We're overthrowing.
I'd love to have a throwdown with John, actually.
Yeah, I'll get him on here. Also, hi, it's me, Squid, and Mama Squid.
Hello.
We have the Squid family here. Mr. Squid is walking around in the background, and then Daddy Squid is somewhere. I don't know.
Probably not walking around.
Probably not.
Sitting in his chair. And this one's just right.
Well, before we start talking about overthrowing the patriarchy, let's talk about our alleged reads. Mama Squid, since you were the guest, what have you been reading?
I am reading The Teacher by Tim Sullivan, which I was trying to look up. It's like book 6 in the DS Cross series. Yes, I'm saying that like a question. Yes, book 6 in the DS Cross series. And I've really just been enjoying the books with the main character that has Asperger's syndrome and the way they portray him, and, you know, a decent, fun detective story in the process also. But it's a light read.
Light reads are needed sometimes.
Well, 2 out of 3 people on this podcast like a light read. I've never read a light book in my life.
You have, because I've made you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I can do a book a day if I do a light read, so...
That's fair. Honestly, that's kind of why I like light reads, because it makes me feel like I've accomplished something.
Maybe someday. Someday I'm going to really get into light reads. I don't know when.
Somehow I doubt that.
Yeah.
When you have 6 kids.
Yeah, when I have 6 kids and nothing else to do. And by nothing else, I mean everything else to do.
Everything else.
I'm reading the exact opposite of a light read. I think... Perhaps if you took a poll of the world and asked them what the least light read would be, it's a book I recently picked back up because it was on my Nook, and I said, why not? Because I'm just not enjoying the book I'm currently reading. So I just restarted Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace, which is like a 1,000-page book that apparently everyone tries to read and rarely finish because it's just heavy. Literally, it's a big book.
Literally and metaphorically.
Kind of heady-ish, but it's a fiction book, so it's kind of like experimental fiction-esque. Everyone says it's either very deep or just wants to be. So, I don't know. I'm reading it. I'm enjoying it. It's interesting. I'd love to tell you what it's about. Storygraph says I'm 1% of the way into this book. So I would love to have a synopsis for you. Couldn't tell you what it is. So far I've met the main character. He doesn't speak, but he talks. He narrates, but doesn't speak out loud. So it's like a prodigy. And then when he tries to speak, it just doesn't come across right. And everyone gets freaked out about it because he just like makes noise. But the narration is from his perspective. And he's like, these people just don't understand. And he really likes tennis.
Interesting.
That's what I got so far.
Cool. Well, I am reading also not a light book, a nonfiction called Raised by a Serial Killer, Discovering the Truth About My Father. And it's by a lady whose dad was known as the Sweetheart Murders serial killer. And it just it alternates between going through what she remembers and then things that, because he wrote a book before I say before anyone caught him being a serial killer, he was already a criminal, and he wrote a book about it, about how he'd been a criminal and he'd been reformed. Clearly he had not, but it kind of walks you through that, and it's interesting listening to her talk about her life. I think we're in the 80s by now. So
Have you ever read Iceman? Or The Iceman?
No.
the book you're reading makes me think of it, but it's about a mafia contract killer.
Oh.
And it also kind of like tells the family perspective where they didn't know necessarily that this is what he did, but also like some of the recollections of being like, my father was stone cold. Not Steve
They-
Austin, but a
He
killer.
even if he
And
had
some
never,
of the things like he said to his kids.
even if he had never killed anybody, he was not a good person. Like, just not. It's not an easy book to listen to. It is at the moment because he's in prison for arson, but
Fair.
when he is there, it's not an easy book because I'm sitting here going, this is why we have Child Protective Services.
Yeah.
So, but the cover was black and white and it fits the bingo I'm trying to do. And I have one more day to do it.
This is also how I pick books.
So I was like, oh, I'll read this. I need a black and white cover. And it's been very interesting. I just started it today and I'm already halfway through, so it's a quick read. But yeah. So that's what I've been reading.
It sounds like a book. I'm pretty sure I've seen a picture of it somewhere. Sounds like
You
something
probably
I would
have.
enjoy.
I will send, as soon as my phone gets done doing its thing, I will send you an image of it, or I can just send it in Discord. I guess that's the thing.
I would definitely enjoy it, but I'm trying to avoid nonfiction since I've spent 54 years doing that. I mean, not avoiding.
I started and I'm not stopping now.
That's all I used to read, and now I'm trying to catch up in the world of fiction. So.
That's fair.
And she's making good progress.
I am.
I try to read at least one or two nonfictions because I don't want to get so caught up in the world of fiction that I forget about other things, if that makes sense. Like not that I would forget about real life, but
It's just not real. It's just not there.
it's just a mindset thing. So I'm also reading another book that's really hard, and it's going to take me a while. It will not be finished this week at all. Called Christian Anti-Semitism.
Oh.
Which makes me go, oh, I'm going to punch somebody. Which is why it's going to take me a while.
I say that often.
It's fair. It's fair. Sometimes you just want to lay hands.
I feel like because I've liked nonfiction, most of the books that I do like that are fictions are historical. So I feel like in some ways I'm still getting a little bit of reality.
That's fair.
Although, if we get into today's book, I loved it, and it's not historical fiction at all. So.
Well,
good lead in. So let's talk about the book. Okay. So the book we are reading today is called Red Rising by Pierce Brown. And I think it's funny because just real recently, Book Talk has discovered this book. And I'm like, where have you people been? Anyway, the description says this. Darrow is a red, a member of the lowest caste in the color-coded society of the future. Like his fellow Reds, he works all day believing that he and his people are making the surface of Mars livable for future generations. Yet he spends his life willingly, knowing that his blood and sweat will one day result in a better world for his children. But Darrow and his kind have been betrayed. Soon he discovers that humanity already reached the surface generations ago. Vast cities and sprawling parks spread across the planet. Darrow and Reds like him are nothing more than slaves to a decadent ruling class. Inspired by a longing for justice and driven by the memory of lost love, Darrow sacrifices everything to infiltrate the legendary Institute, a proving ground for the dominant gold caste, where the next generation of humanity's overlords struggle for power. He will be forced to compete for his life and very future of civilization against the best and most brutal of society's ruling class. There he will stop at nothing to bring down his enemies, even if it means he has to become one of them to do so.
I tell you, not reading the backs of books is really a wild experience.
I'm sure it is.
I did not know that either, but
Yeah, that was too much information to put on the back of a book.
yeah, that's like the whole book.
Yeah, it's like
the first fourth of it.
It could have just been called Hunger Games and Ender's Game had a baby.
You know,
but that doesn't really roll off the tongue the same way as Red Rising.
One of the things on the back of the books, because the first time I read this, I read the physical book, was Katniss and Ender. Darrow now joins Katniss and Ender in something. I don't know. It was much more elaborate than that, but they also referenced that it was very much like the other two. Squid, you have thoughts. I know you do.
I always have thoughts.
Hers are wrong.
Well, hang on a second. Rarely are they wrong as well. I didn't hate it.
Okay.
But I didn't love it. And I had some issues with it.
And she's wrong.
Funny. Yeah, it's here. On the topic of historical fiction, as you said, one of my points in this book, this was a little one, but it just made me think of it because you said historical fiction. Technically, this is speculative fiction about certain historical things because they're from Earth. And I just want to know, when did the fantasy genre become so lazy? When did that happen?
Okay, well, first off, this isn't fantasy.
It's fantasy. Just because it falls under the sci-fi umbrella, those are both fantasy. I don't care what you say. They go together.
Okay.
Anyway.
What do you mean by lazy?
They have this entire world that's presumably centuries into the future, right?
Yeah.
Like long enough that Earth has died. And they've terraformed other planets. So we're talking millennia, probably.
Earth's not dead.
It's questionable. Everything's questionable on this planet.
It's fair.
So we don't get like an actual timeline of how long it's been, but I'm gonna guess millennia.
It's been a minute.
Yeah. Why are some writers, specifically of fantasy and sci-fi, so obsessed with Greek mythology? Can't we come up with something new? Can't we?
Because it's known, so you don't have to explain as much to the reader.
You don't really. I mean, if you go by the logic of sci-fi, where you either have to explain everything or nothing, this book is an explain nothing book.
Mm-hmm.
He's not telling you much. So why isn't he just like, and we also worship our first ruler, this guy, because he was a military power, but he just had to take the easy way, and he was like Apollo, Ares, Athena.
It is interesting, and let me preface this with, I reread the first book, but I read the original series fairly recently. Like right before Booklog Golf started last year. I was going through all the audiobooks because I read Red Rising years ago when it first came out and then never got around to reading the rest of it. So...
And you need to almost, because it really completes the package. I just couldn't put it down. I just went from one to the next, and then I
need to do the next trilogy of Iron Gold, Dark Age, and Lightbringer. My point is I may be misspeaking or speaking about something that's in a further book, but it is interesting how they've twisted the mythology.
Which I will allow that Greek mythology has lasted since many millennia ago until now, and we're still obsessed with it. But I like to see new things. Tolkien invented multiple languages. Why can't you just give me the name of one new guy you think is a god?
It's interesting, definitely. Mama Squid, what do you think about it?
She's wrong.
I finished the first book and told Baby Squid I needed a bumper sticker that says "I love Darrow" because.
She told me that. I looked for you a bumper sticker, and I could not find one that said that specifically.
People suck on your podcast.
We'll allow.
Could be worse. I've edited out worse.
I couldn't put it down, and then I couldn't I couldn't stop until I had finished the series to find out what happened. And that's why I'm so sad when I got to book 4 and it's not actually part of the trilogy.
Yeah.
Like it's a separate storyline, basically. New characters and different generations. And
that's honestly why I haven't gotten into the next set of 3, because I needed a break in between, so I didn't go into it going, this is going to be what I know.
Yeah. See, and to that point too, like one of my problems, I have many problems, as my mother well knows.
I caused them.
She's the reason for it. I don't read a ton of trilogies or even book ones of series. If I read book 1, I need to feel like I read a book that is a story. I don't need to set down a book and go, I read part 1. Because then I feel like you have failed in some way of delivering an actual story to me. You've just given me part of it. So it's like a bait and switch. It's like a Marvel movie where you're just setting it up for the next movie. Like, what happened to the days of, I got Iron Man 1, and it was a good movie. It's still number 1 of the Iron Man series, but it stands alone. And I didn't feel like this book did. I feel like you needed to go to the next book.
And I am totally new to sci-fi and haven't really ventured into like real fantasy, but why are there so many series? That's what every book I put on my list, I'm like, there are 17 books. I don't know that I want to commit.
People buy them.
Like, yeah.
Because sometimes they're trying to tell bigger stories than what you can flesh out in one book.
Well, I disagree. I think they're capitalizing on the fact that people don't want to read one big book and they will read 3 smaller ones.
That's fair.
It's like, because
that is very fair.
There's a lot of, Sanderson.
Yeah,
he's on my list, but
he'll write a big book and get Dune. Even Dune is
Dune is
boom.
For lack of a better phrase, Dune is dry.
Yes, it is.
In more ways than one. But Mama Squid, if you start Brandon Sanderson, I highly recommend starting with I had the name and I can't think of it now.
Kings.
No.
Mistborn. The Stormlight Archive.
Mistborn.
Oh, Mistborn. Okay.
I highly recommend
Mistborn.
starting with Mistborn because it's fantasy light.
That one's not actually on my list, so I'll have to.
That is one of the only ones I've read part of.
I just finished the original trilogy like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And it kind of introduces you and gets you used to his writing style.
Which is a lot of information.
I have Trees of the Emerald Sea on my Libby wait list or something. So
catch us here in a few months.
That one
reading that book.
Oh yeah,
I enjoyed that one, but we will be discussing that one.
I think it's like
here.
October.
Yeah, I think it is October. That was part of the Secret projects, so it's not connected to anything. It is a one-off.
Which is
so
helpful.
Maybe you'll like it, Squid.
Maybe. I have to get Amanda to send it to me.
Trees of the Emerald Sea.
Tress.
Okay, sorry. I don't have my reading glasses on.
That's okay, because I thought it was also Trees of the Emerald Sea for a while and was very confused.
There are 5 books in that series. It's not a one-off.
It's not an actual series. That's part of the what we call what
his big
is called the Secret projects.
I see.
So
that's
he just
good to know. So
randomly,
and he writes a lot of stories that aren't connected but are in the same world too,
yes.
right? So like they are standalone. He's just doing different things in the world he's created.
So like Stormlight Archives and the Mistborn are actually connected. I don't know how yet.
I have neither of those on my list. I have The Final Empire and The Way of Kings.
The Final Empire is the first book of Mistborn.
Okay.
Is that actually what it's called?
Yes.
My book just said Mistborn. But it was very old copy, so that might be, I don't know, maybe Fallen Kingdom's on there somewhere in tiny font, but it just says Mistborn on the cover.
So it's possible. I don't like the old cover for that one. But
But this episode's not about Sanderson, because I was about to keep talking about Mistborn for a minute.
We can do that off recording.
I will say, pros to this book. Not like prose as in his writing, but kind of about his prose. So pros for pros. His fight scenes are well written.
Yes.
They are. That is what I want to. That is how you write a fight scene. I'm not saying that you'll hear this soon on an upcoming episode, but some other fight scenes I've been reading lately do not translate well to literature, and they read kind of like stage blocking.
Yep.
Which is not as exciting to read.
No.
You don't want to read a fight scene that sounds like you're just waiting for it to get turned into a scene visually.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting. I think you made a comment to me that you thought he was less violent than some of the other characters, especially ones that were out to get him, and he was
less violent, still violent.
He is very, very much a violent character, but he is also a product of his surroundings.
But he's like the savior, right? Like not the savior with a capital S, but in the book series, like very much like the one that's trying to unite the colors and, you know.
He's the stereotypical.
Starting from right now, if you don't want spoilers, get off our podcast.
He's the stereotypical chosen one character.
Except he's not, and I disagree with that.
He's
okay. He's reluctant. A bad one. I don't mind that he's reluctant, but this is my problem with the fact that it's part of a series.
Mm-hmm.
Because he made him so reluctant and violent and kind of disagreeing with the whole idea of what was wrong with the world. Like, he's not fully on board with it in this book. Because he keeps wanting to be like, I just want to go back to my life. I was actually kind of good there, guys. Sure, we were subjugated, but I had a cool mech suit and everyone liked me. But you don't get to see any payoff of that. And you also don't get to see, like, the opposite side of, I have done these bad things. Now I'm doing them for this righteous, quote-unquote, cause. But not even the cause that I was originally called to by my wife, who told me point blank she wants me to speak to the people. And she wants me to be a leader for the people. So the decision that I didn't actually make because I died and then was forced into this was, okay, so I won't talk to any of my people. I won't be a leader, and I'll actually just go be one of the bad guys. But for my people in the future. It'll pay off, guys. Just hang tight for 2 to 5 years. And I'll be back.
It was quite a long period of time, I think. And for sure, you got to go read the second and third books, because it really is just one book. It just was written into 3 separate books.
Yeah,
it's one long story.
You can very easily just continue on. But like you said, people get intimidated by
one big
massive books.
Right.
I like big books, and I cannot lie.
Exactly.
Me too.
I have a friend, and she listens to this podcast, but she and I were laughing.
You always say hi to Mama Squid, so.
Hi, Tori.
She loves Shark Heart.
She and I were the ones who talked about Shark Heart. But she and I like to read massive fantasy books. And her husband was, we both were reading the Inheritance series, or Inheritance Games series at the same time.
That's with the brothers, right?
Not Aragon, but yeah, the brothers. It's like a YA version of Oceans.
Or like Knives Out.
Yeah. Similar.
Knives Out. It's like kids' Knives Out.
Yeah. It's preteen Knives Out. She was reading through them really quickly, and her husband was like, man, you're just blazing through those. And we're like, well, they're little. And he's like, these are like 300 pages. She pointed to one of her Sanderson books and goes, they're little.
Yeah. Yep. I think I would have liked this book more if it was all one book. Maybe. If there's not a good payoff for all of the thoughts I've thought in my head.
There is.
Then,
I mean, he was 16 also. Like, not only was he rescued from death, we watch him mature and really grow into the role that he's been put into against his will.
He does stay violent, though.
I mean, he's 16 in a society where you're an adult at 14. So
I mean, we would have to define violent. I still think like he has this reputation of being the Reaper for other people doing killings, and he doesn't correct them. Like he lets a lot of people go, or doesn't kill them, and someone else will kill them, and then he ends up sort of taking.
but he also orchestrates a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
He does,
He
but
does a lot of
it's war.
it is war.
He's very much a tactician character. He's planning and plotting things.
It's like I need to see at the end if there is good payoff for does the end justify the means? Because the whole time I was reading the first book, I was like, sure, you think your people need to be saved. Is this the way to do it? Is this the only way to do it? Are you justified in doing this just because the world made you bad? Jekyll and Hyde situation? Like, it's not, or Frankenstein, I should say. It's not,
Yeah.
society isn't the one that made you bad. Society is made of people, and people are bad. Like,
I mean, that's kind of the whole theme of the book, in a sense, I think, is like, who are you? Who does society think you are? Does your
Right.
caste determine what you will become? Do you have a choice?
And there's also some discussion of, do we become as bad as they were?
so there's a quote I wrote down, and this was early on. I do not remember the names
That's okay.
of any of the people at the beginning of the book that set him on this mission. Not a single one. Anyway, whatever the guy is, what is his name? Is it Ares?
Ares
is the rebels, Sons of Ares. So I don't know.
Okay, so when he goes to the Sons of Ares, and they're sending him on this trip, and they say, we're empire breakers, not terrorists. And I found that quote very interesting because we have one of those, those like icebreaker games where it's just like a deck of cards that have questions on them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the questions that we had a friend dinner and we asked this question, and I think it was the only question we asked all night because it started such a conversation. The question was, are freedom fighters terrorists? And I was like, it's an interesting topic. We should discuss this. It's like, sure, you might call yourself an empire breaker or a freedom fighter or X, Y, or Z, but the acts that Darrow does are terrorism. They are instilling terror into other people purposely, just because they are the bad people, quote unquote, that are, subjugating an entire class of people. We can argue the benefit of that morality of their choices, but he is committing acts of terrorism.
I think that in this book specifically, the difference is that there are things they won't do.
Who?
Darrow.
Oh, a little bit.
You don't see it in this first book, but later some of his morality comes out, and there are things that he doesn't do, which is what I was talking about with the you get into the should I do this and then make myself as bad as they are.
Right. In the words of Batman.
And that's a constant struggle for sure for him. And I mean,
The words of Batman?
You can die a hero. Or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
I thought, I don't know where my brain went.
Pow. The words of Batman.
I do think, that it is just how war is.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like Ukraine and Russia or something, like innocent people on both sides get killed. One person is fighting for their freedom. The other one's conquering, or trying to conquer. It does kind of turn you into the same person that your enemy is, I guess.
Sometimes. I would argue that point too, but that might get too political for this podcast. But I think there is a difference between defending against a conquering force and fighting for your freedom in that way, and going to try and upset what is the current immoral social order with grievous acts of violence. Because it is a war, but it's not technically a war that's currently being fought like front lines.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they've tried other ways and other times. We don't get a lot of that
Right.
history, but they mention it a lot and allude to how many times they failed to overthrow the gold. But
Which is, okay, it's one of those things that's so annoying because you're like, oh, look at him doing what his wife wanted. No, that's not what she told you to do. She said, speak to the people and lead them. They'll listen to you. I'm like, how much different could it have been if he turned around and spoke up with her or talked to the other Reds at that moment? And then it is kind of that, well, we're not going to do this you subjugating force anymore.
If he had tried to speak before he knew the truth, they would have just killed him.
Potentially, yeah.
which they did anyways. They just didn't do it right.
They didn't do a good
they
enough
did,
job.
yes.
Yeah.
They need to try harder.
It's like,
You know what the saddest part of this book is?
When he
Huh?
hangs on his wife's feet
No.
to break her neck. Oh, I guess I'm like,
Nope, because I didn't quite care enough yet at that point. So I wasn't sad yet. But the best character in the book died, and it made me unhappy, which was Pax. What a gem.
I love Pax.
What a gem of a boy.
But I also love Rogue.
Oh, me too.
Like, that man is unhinged.
They're all a little unhinged.
He is more so.
Not a single person in there has a hinge.
That's fair. But he I don't even know if he saw the hinge.
He's like, I don't even know what a hinge is.
We don't have joints in my body. We just hide in carcasses.
What a wild group of boys. Look at just a weird little group of dudes.
It's not even dudes. There was a girl in there.
Mustang, right?
Hey, dudes is gender neutral.
Oh, that's true. Dudes are gender neutral.
What up, dudes? Make it one book and I'll read it. Otherwise,
I have glue. I can.
okay. Can you
Take
rebind
care.
it for me?
I'm sure there's an omnibus somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure there probably is. Good themes. I liked the themes. I just didn't quite think that the way he was writing about them in book 1 would bring me a satisfying conclusion by the end of book 3. So, I could be wrong. You know? Christopher Paolini changed a lot between book 1 and 4, so... Yeah, there was a big change between book 1 and 4, so... Things could change.
Yes.
It could end good. I think Darrow's wrong, but if you want to love Darrow, you go ahead.
Don't judge me for who I love.
I don't love Darrow, but
It's okay, as I told her, she's a Darrow apologist. She knows it.
Darrow is a means to an end.
Yes, he is. As many tools of deliverance are in war.
It's fair.
He's just another puppet.
Ish.
I don't know that'd be true. I didn't read more than book 1, so...
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt great compassion for him. He's 16 years old. His wife dies. They save him from being dead. They operate on him and turn him into something completely different. And then he's like thrown into a society. He has no support. He doesn't know who's with him. He can't tell anybody who he is. And he struggles to get his feet underneath him, I think. And the school itself is very violent. That's what reminded me so much of like Ender's Game. It's almost like they're playing a game and they don't realize they're actually fighting in real life or something, but then people start
Well, it's even worse because they know they're fighting in real life.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
the
closer
Hunger Game
to
part, fight to the death or whatever.
it's
Yeah.
closer to Hunger Games or Battle Royale.
Or Divergent. They do a lot of...
It is similar to Divergent. I think it's better done than Divergent was.
It's not too hard. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
I think those are all my thoughts. Did I write anything else down? Oh yeah, why is Darrow dumb?
Because he's 16. He's
Oh,
been
yeah.
malnourished.
Yeah, he hasn't eaten anything in days.
Yeah. He does mature. I think if you read them all, like,
Mine is not about his maturity. Mine is just about this should be common sense for him because common sense is all he can afford.
He's lived in a cave his whole life. I mean,
Yeah.
he's been sheltered in a sense. They're only allowed the information they were allowed.
This isn't even about information. My question that I literally wrote down is, why is he never thinking these people cheat? He spent so much time being like, they wouldn't do that.
Maybe Reds were real.
Just real genuine. Just nice guys.
Just hardworking miners.
He just, every time something happens in this rigged game, he just gets so surprised.
Well, and it's probably more because he's 16 than it is because he's an idiot. Because
both can be true.
A homeschooled farm boy stuck in.
Yeah.
They deal with the fact that he thinks that he can win the laurel and get everybody in his clan extra food. But it's rigged. And everybody else but him knows this.
It is true.
So they deal with...
I revised my earlier question. Why Darrow so dumb?
Again, he's 16.
Yep.
And has the audacity to be hopeful.
I think he does realize it. I mean, even as you go through the series, it's not so black and white. Like, it's very complicated. And I think he really struggles to navigate that. And who are your friends and who are your enemies? And does someone being red necessarily make them more important or better than some of his other team? Like when they really get a hodgepodge of all the colors together to fight the golds or whatever, they start to touch on more of like the Fellowship of the Ring kind of thing.
People are people.
Yeah, they've all united behind one cause, and yeah, I love Darrow.
This is the book that came up when we were reading Red Queen, though.
Yeah.
I think there was like one review that was like, if you want to read this story, but better read Red Rising.
This story is widely acknowledged as one of the best YA fictions.
It was definitely better than Red Queen. I can say that much.
Was it better than the book that it replaced?
Yeah. Wait. Yes. I was like, wait, what did it replace? Yes.
For the listening audience, we had to do a quick change on our books because we realized that Celeste picking a book without reading the trigger warnings
was one of the most wild reading experiences
for the podcast was a bad idea.
Yeah. I started reading and I went, Celeste picked this book? Celeste, there's a lot of stuff happening in this book.
Celeste never read it.
We shouldn't read this book.
This should not be on the podcast.
For reference, it was not that terrible. It was just surprising and, parental guidance warnings. But if you'd like to read about a really sad minotaur.
Well, your mom is here, so you could have read it.
That's true. I could have brought my mom. I would not want to discuss the book with my mother.
Okay.
No. But it would also similarly end up in a conversation about taking down the patriarchy. It would just be the man that wrote the book.
So,
anyone got any spiritual takeaways?
I do.
I made one up.
That's what we all do. So
you go first, Mama Squid.
Well, I think I was thinking about sort of the last thing I just said about how they really are struggling to see like their value as people, not as reds or golds or whatever. And I was just thinking of the verse where it says neither Jew nor Greek or slave nor free or male nor female, but we're all one in Christ. And just like, I think obviously it's not a spiritual book, but I think they get to a point where they do understand that you're not bad just because you're black or red or gold or silver or whatever like color you're in. They really do develop a deep friendship and work alongside one another and start to tear down those walls, I think. So
that's a good one. So mine it's actually based off of a quote. I wrote it down. I'm so proud of myself. I actually wrote down a thought rather than just flying by the seat of my pants. But Darrow at one point goes, if I'm a good man, why do I want to do bad things? Which...
got news for you, Darrow. I hate to break it to you, buddy.
Which made me think of the scripture that talks about doing things that you don't want to do. Paul struggling with things because Paul struggled. I did not write down the scripture, so again, we're back to flying by the seat of our pants.
Well, I mean, it also brings to mind, like, there are none that are righteous.
Right. There's no one righteous. Naturally we want to do bad things because that is how our flesh is, and we have to actively strive towards sanctification and righteousness. So.
And don't oppress your neighbors.
No.
Don't oppress your neighbors. But also,
I don't even know my neighbors.
Don't start oppressing them.
Get to know them.
Don't go to war. I don't mean in the general sense of, like, joining the military. That's a different conversation.
That is a different conversation.
But don't just go start fighting people. That's not how Christ lived either. So
no, he rode in on his donkey. So
thank God that our Savior didn't have to be a 16-year-old boy that genetically modified himself in order to lead an uprising. Wouldn't that be a weird Bible?
Yes, very much so.
That's my spiritual takeaway. So you'd be thankful for what you have, aka Jesus. It's kind of one of those things, though, that I do think every time there's kind of a Messiah story, which is, a story format that's as old as time, pretty much, because we just love being saved or having a Messiah what the word just left my head? A Messiah figure. But every time I read books like this, because they are often YA in the most in-your-face ways, there's obviously it's a structure in a lot of books where we have kind of that figure, but the YA ones are very upfront about who that figure is, and they're not always the ones you'd want. Surely not the ones you'd want to model your life after.
It is ironic because I think, as I'm just trying to think through books I've read or movies I've watched recently, there is always sort of the savior figure. I mean, even in comedies or something, there's always someone who's kind of the main person you want to be like. But in real life, we're very different. Like, we're always like, I could do that myself. I don't need your help.
We also, I mean, idol worship is...
It is...
We put a lot of people on pedestals.
Yeah.
Also, don't put your neighbors on pedestals.
Yeah, don't do that either.
They might fall off.
Yeah.
That's right. But if you're listening and you have an I Love Darrow sticker, send it to me.
Just get in contact and we'll find you a way to get it to Mama Squid.
Safely.
A tattoo.
If you get an I Love Darrow tattoo, I'm disowning you.
Your dad might disown me also.
I think he would. He can move in with us.
I feel like that his opinion is going to be more important than Squid's opinion on this.
If he hates it, maybe we can change Darrow to like Daddy-O.
Oh.
I love Daddy-O.
I love Daddy.
Well, on that note.
Okay. I think we're done.
And thanks for all the fish, right?
Yes. So long, and thanks for all the fish.
Bye.
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 We Read Allegedly is part of the Devoted Geeks Network, devoted to letting you know that you're loved. This month, we read Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Join us next month and every first Saturday of the month as we allegedly read a new book. Next month, we'll be reading Never Die by Rob Hayes, and we'll have a special bonus episode in our Year of King, where we read Salem's Lot. We'll see you then.
Hello and welcome to We Read Allegedly. No.
Wow, that sounded so much like my voice.
I know.